The night was quiet, only the soft hum of alien insects filling the air. The human sat near the small fire, staring at the orange flames dancing in the darkness. He was tired after the long day of work. His hands were rough, and his mind was heavy. He never thought life would bring him here, in a world so far away from Earth, living among creatures that were never supposed to be real. He rubbed his eyes and leaned back, feeling the cool night breeze against his skin. Then he heard her voice. It was calm, almost too calm. She was sitting across from him, her golden eyes shining in the firelight, her long ears twitching slightly. She looked serious, more serious than he had ever seen her. He thought maybe she was upset about something, or maybe worried. He opened his mouth to ask, but before he could speak, she said it. "We're having puppies." The human froze. His body stiffened, his breath caught in his throat. He blinked, sure he had misheard her words. His ears rang as if the fire itself had roared too loudly. He stared at her, waiting for her to laugh, to smirk, to say she was joking. But she didn't. Her face stayed calm, her eyes steady. She repeated, a little louder, "You and I, we're having puppies." His heart began to race. His mind screamed that this was impossible. Humans and aliens, especially her kind, the canine-like race, couldn't mix. It wasn't in the books, wasn't in the science. It wasn't in anything. He wanted to deny it, to laugh at the madness of her words, but her eyes left no space for doubt. He saw no joke, no lie, only truth. He shook his head slowly, his voice cracking as he whispered, That's not possible. That can't be." She leaned closer, her hand pressing against her stomach. The firelight glowed against her pale fur as she guided his gaze. "It has already started," she said softly. "Life is growing inside me. Our life." The human's eyes widened. His chest felt heavy, and he couldn't breathe properly. Sweat rolled down his neck even though the night was cool. He tried to stand, but his legs felt weak. He stumbled back a step, shaking his head again and again. No, this isn't real. This is a dream, or some kind of trick. Her lips curved into the faintest smile, but it wasn't playful. It was tired, almost sad. "Do you think I would lie about something like this?" she asked, her voice sharp but trembling. "Do you think I don't feel it? The little heartbeats, the warmth, the weight? They are real, and they are ours." He stared at her belly as if his eyes could pierce through her skin. His mind screamed at him to reject it, but his heart told him to listen. His heart whispered that maybe the universe had stranger plans than he ever thought. Silence wrapped around them, heavy and thick. The fire popped, sending sparks into the air. But he didn't even notice. All he could hear was the rush of his blood in his ears and the steady, calm breathing of the alien woman in front of him. He finally forced himself to move closer. His hands shook as he reached out, stopping halfway, afraid to touch her. Afraid of what he might feel. Afraid of confirming her words. But she grabbed his wrist and pulled his trembling hand to her stomach. He gasped when he felt it. A faint rhythm, not her heartbeat, but something else. Something smaller, quicker. His fingers pressed harder, and he felt another, and another. He pulled his hand back as if burned, stumbling away, his eyes wide with shock. "No," he whispered, "this can't be happening." But deep down, he knew it was real. The fire, the night, the alien woman, and the tiny lives already moving inside her, none of it was a dream. His world, everything he thought he knew about life, about nature, about rules, had just broken apart. She looked at him with strange softness. "I told you," she said quietly, "our bond is stronger than you believe. The universe made a choice, and now we must face it." His chest rose and fell in sharp breaths. His mind spun with fear, questions, and impossible images. What would they look like? What would they be? Would they survive? Would the world accept them, or hunt them down? The fire flickered, shadows dancing across the ground like restless spirits. The human could almost hear whispers in the dark, as if unseen eyes had already learned the secret. His stomach twisted with dread. He looked at her again, really looked at her, and saw not just an alien woman, but someone carrying something that could change everything. She reached across the fire and took his hand again, pressing it firmly against her stomach. "You are part of this now," she whispered. "You can run, you can deny, but they are still yours. You cannot escape." He stared into her glowing eyes, and for the first time, he realized she was right. His world had changed forever, in just one sentence, in just one heartbeat. And nothing, not even the laws of nature, would ever be the same again. The human sat with his head in his hands. His heart still raced from the words she had spoken. Every few seconds, he looked up at her, hoping to see some sign that it was all a cruel joke, but she only watched him with steady eyes. Her calm made it worse. He wanted her to laugh, to shake her head, to tell him she was teasing. Instead, she repeated softly, "It is real. You must believe me." He rubbed his face and stood, pacing in front of the fire. His boots crunched on the dry ground. He muttered to himself, half crazed, "Humans and your kind? No, it's not possible. There's no science for this. No books, no records, no proof. It's madness." He turned sharply toward her, his voice louder now. "How can you be so sure? How can you know this isn't some sickness, some trick your body is playing?" She did not flinch at his words. Her hands rested gently over her stomach as if guarding something fragile. "Because I feel them," she said firmly. "I hear them in my sleep. My kind never lies about life. And you are the one who planted it. Don't deny what we shared." His face burned with both shame and fear. The memory of that night returned, but he pushed it away quickly. He shook his head violently. Even if we did, that doesn't mean this is real. Maybe you want to believe it, but that doesn't make it true." Her ears twitched at his words, and a flicker of hurt passed across her face. But she did not stop. She stood and walked closer, her golden eyes locking onto his. "Listen to me, human. You can hide behind your fear, but that will not change the truth inside me. Life is growing, our life. And soon, everyone will know." The last sentence made him freeze. His eyes darted to the darkness beyond the fire, as if the whole world had already heard her words. His stomach twisted. He whispered hoarsely, "Everyone? You can't tell anyone. Do you understand? If others hear this, if your people know, they'll come for us." She tilted her head, confusion in her gaze. "Why? Life should be celebrated." He laughed bitterly, though there was no humor in it. "Because this isn't just life. This is something the universe has never seen before. A human and an alien, puppies born from two different worlds, they won't celebrate it. They'll fear it. They'll hate it. And they'll try to destroy it before it even begins." Her face grew serious. She lowered her voice, almost a growl. "Then they will have to come through me first. I will not let anyone harm them." He stared at her, half in awe, half in dread. Her strength was clear, but so was the danger. He turned away, pacing again, his thoughts spiraling. What if they're not normal? What if they're monsters? What if their bodies can't survive? What if? His voice broke, and he pressed his hand to his forehead. "What if I can't be a father?" She stepped forward and caught his hand, pressing it once more against her stomach. "You already are," she whispered, "whether you accept it or not." His hand trembled against her, and he felt that faint, fast rhythm again. It was undeniable. Still, his mouth refused to speak the acceptance his heart was beginning to feel. He pulled away, clutching his chest. His voice dropped to a harsh whisper. "I don't know if I can do this. I never asked for this." Her eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in quiet challenge. "Do you think I asked for it? Do you think I planned this? The universe chose us. Maybe it is destiny. Maybe it is accident, but it is real. And now, it is ours to protect." He looked at her, words caught in his throat. He wanted to run, to hide from the weight pressing down on his soul. But another part of him, a part he tried to silence, felt a spark of something else. Hope. Still, doubt clung to him like a shadow. Later that night, when the fire had burned low, he lay awake staring at the sky. The stars seemed colder than usual, sharp and distant. He thought about Earth, about the stories of human fathers raising their children, about the laughter of families. Could that ever exist here? Could children not fully human, not fully alien, ever belong anywhere? Beside him, she shifted in her sleep. Her hand stayed protectively over her stomach, even in dreams. The sight cut into him deeper than any blade. She believed with every fiber of her being. He envied that certainty, because all he had was fear. As dawn broke, the whispers of the village reached them. He heard voices outside their shelter, curious and sharp. "She looks different," one voice murmured. "Her scent, it is strange." Another voice whispered, "They say the human stays close to her. Too close." The words stabbed at him. The rumors had already begun. When she woke, she saw the worry in his eyes. "You hear them?" she said quietly. He nodded, jaw tight. "It has started," he whispered. "Soon, they will know." She reached out, her fingers brushing against his. Her voice was calm but strong. "Then let them know. Let them whisper. Let them watch. I will not hide, and you must not hide either. His throat felt dry. He wanted to say yes, to promise her that he would stand beside her no matter what came. But the fear was still there, choking him. He only managed a broken reply. I don't know if I can. Her eyes softened, and for the first time, her strength cracked enough to reveal her own fear. Neither do I, she admitted, but we must try. For them. She pressed her stomach gently and looked at him with hope and desperation. He stared at her, and then at the horizon where the sun painted the sky red. His doubts screamed inside, but something else grew louder, a sense that running was no longer possible. The secret was alive, and it was no longer just hers. It was his, too. And whether he was ready or not, the world would soon demand his answer. The human sat quietly, his back pressed against the wall of their small shelter. His mind was restless, full of questions he had no answers for. The night before still echoed in his head. Her words, the way she had pressed his hand against her stomach, the tiny heartbeats he had felt, it haunted him. He wanted to believe it was impossible, but deep down, he already knew the truth. Something was growing inside her, and it was not just hers. It was his too. She moved closer to him, her golden eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. She lowered herself to the ground beside him, silent for a long moment. Then she took his hand once again and guided it back to her stomach. Listen, she whispered. Do not just feel. Listen. He frowned, confused, but did as she asked. He closed his eyes and pressed his ear gently against her body. At first, he heard nothing but her steady breathing and the soft rhythm of her heart. But then, faint, quick beats, lighter than a bird's wings. His breath caught. There were more than one. Tiny pulses, strong and fast, alive. He pulled back quickly, his eyes wide in shock. I heard them, he whispered. His voice trembled as the words slipped out. They're real. They're really there. Her lips curved into the smallest smile, relief washing over her face. Yes. You cannot deny it anymore. But his relief lasted only a second before fear clawed back into him. He stood up and stepped away, half shaking his head. If I can hear them, if I can feel them, then others will too. What happens when they find out? What happens when your people realize? His voice grew sharper with each word, filled with panic. Her expression hardened. Then we protect them, with everything we have. He stared at her, struggling between fear and awe. She looked so certain, so unshaken, while he felt as if the ground beneath him was crumbling. He paced the floor, running a hand through his hair. You don't understand, he muttered. If word spreads, they'll call it unnatural. They'll call it a curse. They'll come to take you, or worse, his voice dropped. They'll try to kill them before they're even born. Her ears twitched and her eyes darkened at the thought. She placed both hands on her stomach as though shielding the life inside. They will not touch them, she said with a growl. They will not take what is ours. The human's throat tightened. He wanted to believe her strength would be enough, but he knew the truth. Whole armies had fallen to fear. If her people thought the unborn children were dangerous, no single warrior could stand against them. For a moment, silence fell between them again. The only sound was the faint wind outside. But then she leaned closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. There is more, she said. When I sleep, I see visions. I see them running. I see their faces, their eyes, and I see danger chasing them. These are not dreams. They are warnings. The human froze, her words chilling him. Visions, he repeated. She nodded slowly. In my people's blood, there are gifts. Some see beyond what is here. I see our children's future. I see that they will be hunted. But I also see you. Her eyes locked onto his. I see you standing between them and death. His mouth went dry. He wanted to argue, to tell her that dreams meant nothing, that visions were just tricks of a worried mind. But the way she said it with such weight made him doubt his own doubt. He rubbed his face and groaned. Why me? Why would it be me? Because you are their father, she said simply, and because no one else would fight for them. Her words stabbed into him like blades. He wanted to run, to deny, but those tiny heartbeats still echoed in his ears. He could not escape them. Suddenly, a sharp sound outside made them both turn. Voices. Whispers. The human froze, his chest tight. He moved to the door of the shelter and pressed himself against it, listening. Her scent is strange, one voice murmured. She has been hiding something, another answered. And the human, he never leaves her side. The human's blood ran cold. They knew. Maybe not everything, but enough to suspect. He turned to her, his face pale. They're talking about you, about us. Her golden eyes narrowed, and for the first time, he saw a flicker of fear cross her strong face. She moved closer to him and whispered, "We must be careful now. Every step, every word, they are watching." He nodded, but dread filled him. He realized this was only the beginning. The whispers would grow louder, the suspicions deeper, and once the truth came out, there would be no turning back. That night, as they sat together in silence, he could not shake the sound of those faint, fast heartbeats. They were real. They were alive. And if others were already starting to suspect, then time was running out. She reached out and touched his hand softly, pulling his thoughts back to her. Her voice was calm, almost gentle now. "You fear because you care," she said. "That is good. But you must also be strong. For me, for them." He looked into her eyes, seeing both her courage and her hidden fear. He wanted to promise her everything, to tell her he would fight for them, die for them if he had to. But the words stuck in his throat. All he could do was nod weakly. Still, deep inside, a small fire began to burn. It was faint, fragile, but it was there. He had felt the heartbeats. He had heard the life. No matter how afraid he was, no matter how impossible it seemed, he could not ignore it. Something new had begun. Something bigger than fear, bigger than doubt. As the wind howled outside and shadows crept across the walls, the human realized one truth. His life was no longer his own. It belonged to them now, the alien woman and the tiny, fragile lives hidden inside her. And whether he was ready or not, the world was going to find out. The sun rose over the colony, its light spilling across the strange alien fields, but to the human it felt darker than night. He could feel it in the way people stared when he walked past, in the way their whispers followed him like shadows. Before, he was just an outsider, the human worker who kept mostly to himself. Now, eyes lingered longer, sharper, as if they were trying to peel the truth from his skin. She walked beside him, her hand brushing against her stomach every so often. The movement was small, protective, and though she tried to hide it, others noticed. A group of villagers paused their work when she passed, their ears twitching, their noses lifting into the air. He heard one mutter, "Her scent has changed." Another whispered, "It is not right. Something is different." He pulled her closer, urging her to keep walking, but his chest tightened with every step. The rumors were spreading faster than wildfire. Soon, there would be no hiding. That evening, while the two of them sat inside their shelter, voices gathered outside. At first, it was just a few, curious and murmuring, but then more came. Dozens. He could hear them clearly through the thin walls. "She has taken the human seed. It cannot be. Such things are impossible. Then why does her body carry the smell of new life? If it is true, it is a curse. It must be stopped before it spreads." His blood ran cold. He turned to her, panic flashing in his eyes. "They know," he whispered. "It's no longer whispers. They know." She looked calm, but her golden eyes burned with quiet fire. "Then let them know," she said. "I will not hide." Before he could stop her, she stood and pushed open the door. The crowd outside fell silent as she stepped into view. Her long ears twitched, her hand resting proudly over her stomach. "Yes," she said, her voice carrying strong in the evening air. "It is true. Life grows within me. Life created with him." The crowd gasped as if struck by lightning. Some backed away in horror. Others snarled, their teeth bared. The human stepped beside her, heart pounding, ready to defend her if they attacked. One elder pushed forward, his face twisted with anger. "You shame your people," he spat. "You break the laws of nature. This abomination must not be allowed." The human's fists clenched, but before he could speak, she growled low in her throat, her voice sharp and dangerous. "Call it what you will, but they are mine. They are ours, and I will kill any who try to take them from me." Her words sent a ripple through the crowd. Some looked uncertain, even afraid. Others grew angrier. The elder pointed at her with a trembling hand. "If such creatures are born, they could destroy the balance of our kind. The council will hear of this. You cannot hide, and you cannot fight us all." The crowd dispersed slowly, muttering threats and curses. The human and the alien woman returned inside, but the silence between them was heavy. He paced the floor, his mind racing. "This is bad," he said, his voice rough. "The council, the authorities, once they hear, they won't just come with words. They'll come with soldiers. They'll take you away." She sat calmly on the floor, her hand still resting on her stomach. Then we will run. Her words stopped him. He turned, his eyes wide. Run? Where? There's nowhere to go. They'll hunt us down. Her gaze was steady. There are old tunnels beneath the colony, abandoned places no one dares to go. We can hide there, at least until the time comes. He shook his head, fear making his voice tremble. You don't understand. They won't stop. They'll chase us to the ends of the world. And if they catch us... He broke off, unable to finish. She stood and placed her hand on his chest, forcing him to look into her eyes. Then we make sure they don't catch us. You felt them. You heard them. They are alive, and they need us. If we give up now, they will die before they even take their first breath. He closed his eyes, his chest heavy. He wanted to tell her she was wrong, that they had no chance. But then he remembered those faint, fast heartbeats. He remembered the way her body had trembled as she spoke of visions, of danger, of him standing between the children and death. The decision was already made, even if his lips refused to say it. That night, as darkness spread over the colony, he prepared. He gathered what little food they had, tied bundles of water skins, and packed tools into a rough sack. His hands shook with every movement, but he kept working. She watched him silently, her eyes soft but full of unspoken strength. Suddenly, a loud knock thundered at the door. Both of them froze. His heart stopped. By order of the council, a deep voice called, "Open the door. You are to be brought before judgment." She bared her teeth, a low growl rumbling from her throat. The human glanced at her, panic rising like fire in his chest. "They're here," he whispered. She moved quickly, grabbing his arm. "The tunnels," she hissed. "Now!" The door rattled again as fists pounded harder, the voice outside angrier. "Open, or we break it down." The human slung the sack over his shoulder, his breath coming in sharp gasps. He knew once they opened that door, everything would be over. There was no more time for doubt, no more space for fear. He grabbed her hand, and together they slipped out the back into the night, shadows swallowing them whole. Behind them, the door finally crashed open, and angry voices filled the empty shelter. But by then, the human and the alien woman were already running toward the unknown, carrying with them the greatest secret the world had ever seen. The tunnels were dark, damp, and full of silence that felt heavier than stone. The human held a small torch, its flickering flame throwing shaky shadows on the rough walls. Every sound echoed too loudly, the drip of water, the crunch of gravel beneath their boots, the quick breaths they both struggled to quiet. He looked back often, afraid of seeing soldiers in pursuit, afraid of glowing eyes following them into the dark. She walked slowly, one hand pressed to her stomach, her face pale but determined. Her ears twitched at every noise, her golden eyes glowing faintly in the dark like two small lanterns. He wanted to tell her to rest, but there was no time. They had left their home behind. They had left everything behind. Now the only thing they carried was each other and the fragile lives inside her. After hours of walking, they reached a small chamber where the ceiling opened slightly, letting in a thin line of moonlight. The human lowered his torch and guided her to sit on the stone floor. She leaned against the wall, tired, sweat shining on her forehead. He quickly gave her water, holding the skin to her lips. She drank slowly, then looked at him with a faint smile. "You are learning," she whispered. He gave a weak laugh, but his heart was heavy. He sat beside her, pulling the sack closer. Inside were their few supplies, bread, dried meat, a blanket. It wasn't much, not for what lay ahead. He looked at her stomach, rising and falling with her breaths, and guilt stabbed him. "I should have protected you better," he muttered. "We shouldn't be hiding here like hunted animals." Her hand found his, squeezing gently. "You did protect me. You came with me. That is enough." But he shook his head, unable to believe her. The whispers of the villagers still echoed in his ears. The anger in the elder's eyes haunted him. He knew they weren't safe. Not here. Not anywhere. As she rested, he couldn't sleep. He sat awake, the torch dying slowly, the silence pressing in, and then without warning a sound came, soft, strange, almost like music. He froze and looked at her. Her eyes were closed, but she was whispering in her sleep. Not words, but something else. A low hum, like a lullaby. He leaned closer, listening. That was when he heard it again, the faint heartbeats. But this time they were clearer, louder. Not just beats, but almost voices. He pulled back in shock, his skin cold. He whispered to himself, They're growing stronger. Morning came slowly, though time felt meaningless in the tunnels. They continued deeper, moving carefully. The air grew colder, the paths narrower. He kept her close, holding her arm when the ground became uneven. Every few minutes, he checked behind them, always expecting the council's soldiers to appear. After a long climb down, they reached another cavern, larger and darker. Strange roots hung from the ceiling, dripping with glowing liquid that lit the chamber with an eerie blue light. She sank to the ground, exhausted, her breathing heavy. He quickly spread the blanket for her and knelt beside her. "You need rest," he said firmly. She shook her head. "There is no time." Her voice was soft but full of pain. "They are moving inside me, stronger each day. It will not be long now." His chest tightened. The thought of the pups being born here, in the cold tunnels, with no help, filled him with fear. "We need to find somewhere safer," he insisted. "Somewhere clean, somewhere hidden." But she reached up and touched his face, forcing him to look at her. "Home is not a place," she whispered. "It is you. As long as you are here, it will be safe." Her words broke something inside him. For the first time since this nightmare began, he let himself believe her. He nodded slowly, pressing his forehead against hers. "Then I'll stay, no matter what." They stayed hidden for days, moving only when necessary. The human hunted small creatures with crude traps, brought back water from underground streams. He forced himself to stay strong, even when his body screamed with exhaustion. Each night, when she fell asleep, he sat awake listening to the silence, always afraid of footsteps, always ready to run again. One night, he dreamed of the children. Not vague shapes, not shadows, clear faces. Small, fragile bodies with his eyes and her ears, their laughter echoing in the dark tunnels. But in the dream, soldiers came, their weapons flashing, their voices filled with hatred. The dream ended with him standing alone, blood on his hands, the laughter gone. He woke drenched in sweat, his heart pounding. She was awake too, watching him with soft eyes. "You see it now," she whispered. "The future is full of danger, but also hope." Before he could answer, a sound echoed through the tunnels, distant but unmistakable. Boots, many boots. His blood turned to ice. He grabbed her arm, his voice urgent. "They've found us. We have to move." She tried to stand, but her body trembled. She clutched her stomach, pain flashing across her face. "It's too soon," she gasped. "They are coming, and so are they." His breath caught. Terror and determination clashed inside him. He looked into the darkness where the soldiers' voices echoed closer, then at her pale face as she struggled to hold herself together. The choice was clear. There was no more running. He had to fight, even if it meant dying. He gripped the only weapon he had, a rusted metal bar, and stood in front of her, his body trembling but unyielding. "They'll have to go through me first," he said, his voice steady for the first time. She reached out and took his hand, her grip weak but filled with trust. Her golden eyes glowed faintly as she whispered, "Then we face it together." The sound of footsteps grew louder, echoing like thunder in the tunnels. The human's pulse matched the rhythm of the tiny lives beating inside her. The moment of truth had come, and he knew nothing would ever be the same again. The air in the tunnels grew heavy as the sound of boots echoed closer. The human tightened his grip on the rusted metal bar in his hand. His palms were sweaty, his heart hammering so hard he could barely hear himself think. Beside him, she leaned against the wall, her breathing uneven, her hand clutching her stomach as sharp waves of pain passed through her. Her face was pale, her ears twitching with every sound. "It has started," she whispered, her voice breaking. "They are coming, and so are the pups." His chest froze. "Now?" he asked, his voice shaking. She nodded, her body trembling. Panic gripped him like a vice. The soldiers were coming to kill them, and she was about to give birth. There was no more time. The tunnel grew brighter as torches flickered in the distance. Shadows stretched long across the rough walls. The human's breath came quick and shallow. He turned to her, fear twisting inside him. "I'll fight them. No matter what happens, don't stop. You have to bring them into this world." Her golden eyes lifted to his, full of both pain and strength. "And you must survive," she whispered, "for them." Before he could answer, the soldiers appeared. Their armored figures filled the tunnel, weapons gleaming in the torchlight. The leader stepped forward, his face hard, his voice booming. "Step aside, human. What she carries is not meant to live." The human's jaw clenched, rage boiling in his blood. He raised the metal bar, standing firmly between the soldiers and her. "You'll have to kill me first." The soldiers sneered, their weapons lifting. Then chaos exploded. The first lunged, blade flashing in the dim light. The human swung wildly, the bar striking with a sickening clang. Sparks flew, the soldier stumbled back. Another came, faster, thrusting toward him. He ducked, his body moving on pure instinct, striking back with desperate strength. Behind him, her cries filled the air, sharp and broken as labor gripped her body. She pressed her back against the wall, sweat dripping down her face, her claws scraping the stone floor. Her voice trembled, calling his name, but he could not turn. He had to hold the line. Every strike rattled his bones. Every breath felt like fire in his chest. But he refused to fall. He thought of the heartbeats he had heard inside her, the tiny rhythms of life. He thought of their fragile future, a future the soldiers wanted to crush. He roared in fury, swinging again and again, driving them back for moments at a time. Still, they kept coming. A blade sliced across his arm, burning pain exploding through him. He staggered, but when he heard her scream again, he forced himself to stand taller. Blood dripped down his arm, but he tightened his grip on the bar, his eyes blazing with determination. One soldier sneered, stepping forward with his weapon raised high. "You fight like a beast," he snarled. "But beasts die all the same." The human's lips curled into a bitter smile. "Then let me die as one who protected his family." He swung with all his strength, the bar smashing against the soldier's helmet, sending him crashing to the ground. But more footsteps echoed in the distance, more soldiers coming. His body trembled, his breaths ragged. He knew he couldn't hold them all forever. He glanced back at her, seeing her body shaking with the effort of birth, her golden eyes glowing fiercely despite her pain. "You must live," she whispered again through clenched teeth. "Promise me, human. Promise me." "I won't let them take you," he said, his voice raw. Another wave of soldiers surged forward. The human swung again, blocking, striking, but his body grew slower. His vision blurred. The world narrowed into flashes of steel, shouts, and the sound of her broken cries behind him. Then, suddenly, a new sound filled the tunnel. Not her cries, not the clash of metal, but something higher, smaller. A sharp, weak cry that echoed against the stone walls like music from another world. The soldiers froze. Even the human stopped, his chest heaving. He turned his head slowly. She was lonely. She was lying against the wall, her body trembling, tears in her eyes, but a tiny creature lay in her arms. Its skin glowed faintly in the torchlight, its ears small but pointed like hers. Its eyes flickering open to reveal human color. It was breathing. It was alive. The human's knees almost gave out, a sob caught in his throat. He staggered back toward her, his weapon slipping from his hand. Another cry rose from the small life in her arms, fragile but powerful in its own way. The soldiers stared, their faces pale, their weapons lowering. One whispered, "Impossible." Another muttered, "It's alive, half human, half our kind." The leader stepped forward, but even he seemed shaken. He glared at the child, then at the human and the mother. His voice was quieter now, edged with something close to fear. "This should not exist." The human moved in front of her again, though his body trembled and his wounds bled freely. His voice was hoarse but steady. "It does, and nothing you do can change that." Behind him, she cradled the newborn close, her golden eyes blazing with both exhaustion and pride. Her voice was soft but carried in the silence. "This is only the beginning." Another wave of pain hit her, and her body shuddered. She gasped, and before anyone could move, another cry split the air. Then another. The human turned, his mouth falling open. Not one, but 3 tiny pups now lay against her chest, each crying in weak, fragile voices. The tunnel was filled with sound, not of battle, but of new life. The soldiers shifted uneasily, their weapons lowered completely now. None dared to step forward. None dared to touch the miracle before them. The human knelt beside her, tears streaming down his dirt-streaked face. He touched one of the newborns gently, his rough hands trembling as the tiny fingers wrapped weakly around his. His heart swelled with emotions he couldn't name, fear, love, wonder, all at once. He looked at her, and she gave a faint smile through her exhaustion. "You see now," she whispered. "They are real. They are ours." The human turned back to the soldiers, his eyes burning with fierce determination. "If you want to take them," he said, his voice low but unbreakable, "you'll have to kill me first. And even then, they will live on." The soldiers stood frozen, unsure. shaken by what they had witnessed. And in that moment, the human knew their lives had changed forever. The pups had come into the world in blood and battle, and nothing, not fear, not hatred, not even death, would ever erase them. The tunnel was filled with the cries of the newborns. Their small voices echoed like music against the stone, breaking through the fear that had hung in the air moments before. The human knelt close, his arms trembling as he held one of them gently. The tiny creature's skin was soft, its heartbeat rapid and strong beneath his touch. Its ears twitched like hers, but its eyes, when they blinked open, were human. He felt his chest tighten, a warmth spreading inside him stronger than anything he had ever known. She lay against the wall, her body weak but her golden eyes glowing with pride. The three small pups rested against her chest, their cries softening into little breaths. She looked at him, her lips curving into a faint smile. "They live," she whispered, her voice breaking with exhaustion and joy. "They live because of us." The soldiers stood frozen, their weapons lowered. None dared to step closer. The leader's face was pale, his eyes locked on the newborns as though they were a vision from another world. His hand trembled, and for the first time his voice carried doubt. "This should not exist. This is against the laws of nature." The human rose slowly, still holding the pup in his arms. His face was streaked with sweat and blood, but his eyes burned with a fire that silenced the tunnel. He looked directly at the soldiers. "Then your laws are wrong," he said. His voice shook at first, but grew stronger. "Look at them. They are not curses. They are not monsters. They are life, and you cannot destroy life just because you fear it." The soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. Some looked away, ashamed, while others stared with wide eyes at the fragile newborns. The human's voice cut through the silence again, filled with determination. "If you want to take them, you'll have to kill me first. And even if you do, the truth is already here. You cannot erase it." Behind him, the alien mother's voice rose, tired but firm. "They are not only ours, they belong to the future. They are proof that two worlds can become one." Her golden eyes narrowed, daring anyone to deny her. The leader hesitated. His grip on his weapon loosened. He stared at the children again, then at the human standing protectively in front of them. For a long moment, the tunnel was silent except for the newborn's tiny breaths. Then, slowly, he lowered his weapon. "This will change everything," he muttered. "The council, the elders, they will not forgive this." The human stepped forward, still holding the pup, his face unyielding. "Then let them come. Let the whole world know. But understand this, no council, no elder, no army will ever take them from me, from us." The soldiers backed away one by one, their fear greater than their hatred. None of them wanted to be the one to strike at the fragile, glowing lives. In the end, only the leader remained, staring at the family one last time before turning his back. His voice was quiet but heavy. "You have made enemies tonight. The world will not be kind. But perhaps it will remember." Then he disappeared into the shadows with the others. Silence returned to the tunnels, broken only by the newborn's soft sounds. The human fell to his knees, his strength finally leaving him. Tears ran down his face as he looked at her. She reached out with a trembling hand, brushing his cheek. "You did it," she whispered. "You kept your promise." He shook his head, his throat tight. "We did it. Together." They stayed in the tunnel until dawn. The newborns slept curled against their mother, their small bodies warm, their breath steady. The human watched them in silence, his heart aching with both fear and love. He knew the soldiers would return. He knew the council would not let this go. But for now, he allowed himself to feel the miracle of the moment. When the first light of day reached into the tunnels, he stood, his body aching, his wounds burning. He looked down at her and the children, his face set with quiet determination. "We can't stay here," he said softly. "They'll hunt us again. But it doesn't matter. Wherever we go, I'll protect you, always." She smiled faintly, her strength slowly returning. "And I will protect you, always." He gathered their few belongings, then helped her to her feet. Together they walked into the morning light, the three newborns wrapped safely in her arms. The sky above was vast, endless, and full of uncertainty. But for the first time, the human didn't see it as a threat. He saw it as a beginning. Every step felt heavy, but every step also carried purpose. He thought of the night when she had first told him, "We're having puppies." He had doubted, feared, tried to run from the truth. Now there was no running. The truth was alive, breathing, and looking up at him with tiny eyes that held both worlds. As they disappeared into the horizon, whispers spread behind them. Whispers of the impossible. Whispers of new life born from two different worlds. Some would call it a curse, others a miracle. But one thing was certain: the universe would never be the same again. The human walked on, his heart steady, his resolve unbreakable. He was no longer just a man, he was a father. And no power in the galaxy could take that away.